Have you ever watched the trailer all the way through, got hyped, and only realized afterward that you'd been looking at the wrong thing the entire time? Because that's exactly what happened with Episode 8 trailer for ReZero Season 4. People saw what was on the surface, enjoyed the action scenes, got excited about the characters, and simply didn't notice what was hidden right there, in front of everyone, waiting for someone to actually pay attention. And look, I get it. ReZero has this absurd power to lock you into a spectacular scene while sliding what actually matters right under the radar. Taipei does this all the time. He drops the densest information inside a frame that lasts less than 2 seconds, in a background detail, in an expression that's gone before you can blink, and walks away knowing that half the audience will fly right past it. But not today. Today, we're going to slow down, put the trailer in slow motion, and talk about what nobody, or almost nobody, actually stopped to analyze properly. Before we get into the analysis, let me give you the context of what's at stake in this 4th season, because without understanding the weight of the arc, you can't grasp the depth of what the trailer is communicating. Arc 7 is different from anything ReZero has ever done. We're inside the Volakia Empire, a nation built on a brutal and simple philosophy. The strong survive, the weak die, and any sign of weakness is a death sentence. There's no room for compassion, for hesitation, for the kind of person Subaru is. And that's exactly why this arc hurts so much. Because the Subaru who entered Volakia is not the same one struggling to survive in Episode 8. He was broken, not metaphorically, not in some poetic and beautiful way so he can rise back up feeling inspired. He was destroyed from the inside, in a way the series has never shown before. And the trailer knows it. Every frame was assembled to show you a man who is at his limit, but who is still standing for a reason he even can't quite explain. And that's where the first detail the audience ignored. In the opening seconds of the trailer, when the camera opens on the Empire scenery, there's a very specific lighting choice. The light doesn't come from above, the way you'd normally expect from an epic scene. It comes from below and from the sides, casting shadows that distort the characters' faces in an almost unrecognizable way. It looks like an art direction detail, and for most people, it is. But within ReZero's narrative logic, that choice is not accidental. Since the first season, the series has used lighting direction as emotional language. Light from above means clarity, purpose, a character in control of their own narrative. Light from the side or below means ambiguity, danger, someone being seen from an angle they themselves can't see. And in this trailer, almost no scene has light coming from above. What is that telling us? That in Episode 8, not one character, not one, is acting with clarity of purpose. Everyone is in survival mode, and that includes characters you probably wouldn't expect to see in that state.
Now let me talk about something that generated a lot of hype in the fandom, but was interpreted in the most surface level way possible. The moment Vincent Volakia appears in the trailer, everyone saw it. Everyone got excited about the Emperor's presence. Social media went into a frenzy about his design, his voice, his posture. And it makes sense. He's visually striking, and the way he was animated carries that weight of someone who simply doesn't know what doubt feels like. But nobody talked about where he's positioned in the frame. Pay attention. In every scene of the trailer where Vincent appears, he's always slightly off-center. Not by much. It's subtle enough that you don't consciously notice it. But he's never at the central point of the composition. And there's a reason for that. ReZero Season 4's visual direction uses the center of the frame as a marker of narrative power. Characters who are in control of the situation are framed at the center. Characters who are external factors, who influence without necessarily dominating, are displaced. And Vincent, despite all his imposing presence, consistently appears in the lateral third of the frame. That's a statement. The trailer is saying that no matter how much Vincent appears to be the axis around which everything revolves, and narratively he is because he's the Emperor, he is not in control of what's about to happen. Someone or something is operating at a level that escapes even his perception. And if you connect that with what we know about Arc 7 from the source material, it starts to make a sense that sends chills down your spine. But wait, because there's more.
There's a quick scene in the trailer, and when I say quick, I mean less than 3 seconds, where a hand appears holding something. The camera doesn't show the face of whoever's holding it, doesn't show the body, just the hand and the object. Most people either didn't see it or skipped over it like it was just a transition shot. But that object matters a great deal. Its geometry, the way it reflects light, the angle at which it's being held, all of it is consistent with something that appeared briefly in Arc 6 and was never fully explained: a relic, a fragment of something much larger. And if it's what I think it is, it means the timeline of this arc is far more interconnected with past events than anyone imagined. It's not just a side adventure for Subaru inside the Empire, it's a knot in the web of something that started long before and that will echo long after. Now let me talk about Priscilla, because the Priscilla in this trailer is not the Priscilla you know. We're used to her as the character of absolute presence, the one who walks into a room and the room rearranges itself around her, the one who never hesitates, never backs down, who acts with a certainty so complete it sometimes feels supernatural. In the Episode 8 trailer, there's a scene where she appears and for the first time in the entire series, the framing doesn't expand around her. The camera doesn't pull back to create space for her. She appears and the frame stays tight, almost claustrophobic. It lasts less than 4 seconds and probably went invisible to almost everyone. But for anyone who understands the visual language rezero has built across 4 seasons, this is enormous because it means something happened to Priscilla. Not necessarily something you'll see explicitly in Episode 8, it could be a consequence of something that happened before, something not yet shown, or something she discovered that shook that unshakable certainty that defines her character. And the question that raises is what could possibly shake Priscilla? Now, I need to talk about Subaru, and about what this trailer reveals about his internal state. Not the physical state, not the external circumstances, but what's happening inside his head. Because there's an editing pattern in the trailer that's very hard to ignore once you notice it. Every time Subaru appears alone in the frame, without another character nearby, the underlying score shifts in tone. Not to completely different music, but the tone drops. It gets lower, denser, with less treble. It's almost imperceptible because it happens gradually, and the trailer distracts you with the image. But try paying attention to only the audio the next time you watch. You'll notice that the scenes with Subaru alone carry a different sonic weight, as if the world becomes heavier when he has no one beside him. That's not an accident. That's intentional construction of emotional atmosphere. And the reason this matters so much is that ReZero Season 4 is placing Subaru at a point in the narrative where the central question is no longer survival. It's no longer how do I get out of the situation? It's a far deeper question. Who am I without the things that define me? In Arc 7, Subaru loses things. I won't specify because going too deep into spoilers isn't the point here, but he loses things that are central to his identity, and the Episode 8 trailer is documenting that process from the inside out, not through expository dialogue, not through monologues, but through these visual and sonic choices that build the experience without needing to tell you what to feel. That's where ReZero separates itself from 90% of isekai anime. Any average series tells you how to feel. ReZero puts you in the emotional state before you even realize how you got there. There's one more detail in the trailer I want to highlight, and it's probably the most unsettling of all. There's a moment where the camera does a close-up on an eye, just one eye. It doesn't show the full face, doesn't reveal who it is, just the eye, for maybe 2 seconds, before cutting to another scene. Half the fandom that commented on that frame assumed there was a specific character based on the eye color, and maybe it is. But eye color in ReZero has been used in deliberately misleading ways before. There's at least one canonical instance where colors that seem to clearly identify a character are in fact a reference to something else entirely. What catches my attention about that close-up isn't the color, it's the expression. There's no fear in that eye, no rage, no heroic determination,
There's something that is much harder to portray and much harder to read. There's acceptance. That specific kind of acceptance that doesn't come from peace, but from someone who has reached the point beyond which resistance no longer makes sense. And if you've already read the source material for Arc 7, you know exactly why that is devastating. If you haven't, brace yourself, because Episode 8 is arriving at a point where the pieces start falling into place in a way that will change how you see the entire previous season. The last thing I want to point out in this trailer analysis is about All. All is a character the series uses in a very peculiar way. He's always present in the most critical moments, but in a passive way, observing, calculating, rarely acting directly. And in the Episode 8 trailer, he appears twice. The first appearance is exactly what you'd expect from him. He's in the background, nearly out of focus, looking at something happening outside the frame. Classic All. The second appearance is completely different. He's in focus, at the center of the frame. That center the series reserves for characters in control of the narrative. And he's looking directly at the camera. Not at another character, not at the scenery, at the camera, at you. It's a moment that lasts less than 1.5 seconds, but within ReZero's visual vocabulary, that's a massive rupture. It's a character breaking the fourth wall in a way the series almost never does this explicitly. And what does it mean? Honestly, there are several possible interpretations, but the one that makes the most sense within All's arc, taking into account what we know about his past, about the abilities he possesses that have never been fully explained, is that he knows. He knows what's going to happen. Maybe not the details, but the general shape of it. And for some reason, in that specific moment, he looks at the camera as if to say, "Are you ready for this?"
Now, I want you to step back for a second and think about what this trailer is doing as a whole, not as a list of cool scenes or hype moments, as a piece of intentional narrative communication. ReZero Season 4 arrived with a different weight than the previous seasons. Gone is that chaotic energy from the beginning of the series, that urgency of a protagonist discovering the rules of the world he fell into. The Subaru of now knows the rules, and discovering that you know the rules but still can't change what's happening, that's an entirely different kind of despair. And the Episode 8 trailer is capturing exactly that moment. Not the moment of the hero who rises for the 10th time with renewed determination. The moment before that. The moment when he's on the floor, staring at the ceiling, wondering if getting up again will change anything at all. It's far more honest than most fantasy stories allow themselves to be. There is a principle in storytelling that good writers know well. The emotional peak of a story is not the moment of greatest action intensity. It's the moment of least movement. It's the silence before the decision. It's the scene where nothing explodes, no one screams, and the character simply sits there with the weight of everything that's happened. The Episode 8 trailer is full of visual intensity, quick cuts, moments that make your heart race. But the most important frames, the ones that carry the real weight of the story, are the quietest ones. The close-ups on eyes, the character standing still, the seconds of silence before the music rises again. And when you learn to look at those moments, you realize the Episode 8 trailer isn't selling you action, it's selling you consequence. Everything being shown there doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's the result of choices made across 20-something episodes of this season, of decisions that seem small at the time and that now arrive at the point of reckoning. ReZero has always been a series about exactly this, about the cost of every return in time, about what stays in the memory and the body even when events are reversed, about the accumulated price of carrying alone a weight that no one around you even knows exists. And Episode 8 seems to be the point where that bill comes due. What I recommend is this. Before watching the episode, watch the trailer one more time, but now without sound, just the image. Watch what the characters are doing with their bodies, their eyes, the space they occupy in the frame. Remove the sonic impact from the equation and see what's left. Because what's left when you take away the sound is the story the directing team is telling in parallel to the story the script is telling, and those two stories aren't always the same one. In ReZero, they frequently aren't. This analysis isn't even close to complete. There are details in the trailer I deliberately didn't mention because discussing them would require going deep into heavy spoilers from the source material, and this isn't the place for that. But enough has been said so that when you watch Episode 8, you'll be watching with different eyes. Not the eyes of someone waiting for the next epic moment. The eyes of someone who understands that in ReZero, what isn't shown matters just as much as what is. Now tell me something. If Subaru had known from the very beginning the real price of every single return, not just the pain, not just the trauma, but what he would be willing to sacrifice to reach this point in Arc 7, do you think he would have made the same choices?